Ms Wild for the opposition.
Excuse me. Thank you very much, Ms Furness. And I congratulate the Honourable Member for North Devon for this debate and all the contributions that we've heard. Of course, it was the Conservative-led government which introduced the fuel duty rural relief scheme in 2019, and that was in recognition that remote communities face higher pump prices due to the high cost of transporting and distributing fuel. And the scheme was then subsequently extended again in 2015 to include more areas across England and Scotland, providing a welcome 5p a litre reduction in prices to help families and businesses in those areas, particularly where they might only have one filling station that they can choose from. And it recognised that rural communities, especially isolated rural communities, face challenges that justify targeted support. And as we've heard from honourable members, it has proved effective and needed. And in the main chamber at the moment, my right honourable friend, the Shadow Environment Secretary, has been setting out the support that Conservatives have provided consistently for rural Britain. That's where many of my colleagues are speaking. And we demonstrated in government our commitment to those like my North West Norfolk constituents who live and work in the countryside. And our fuel duty record underlines this. As well as the rural duty relief, we froze fuel duty every year from 2011. In March 2022, we went further and introduced a 5p pence cut to fuel duty across the board. And this wasn't merely about tax policy. It was about recognising that for rural communities, a car or a van is not a luxury, it is a lifeline. It connects farmers to markets, it helps children get to school, people to get to work, to get to health appointments, and it keeps rural enterprises in business. And every penny that's added to the cost of fuel has a multiplied effect in areas where public transport is limited and where journeys are longer. And our support for rural communities expended far beyond fuel duty to infrastructure supporting agricultural businesses, which recognise the vital contribution to our country and the social fabric. And what a contrast to what we've seen under this government. A government that says the cost of living is its priority, yet is adding to costs for families and businesses. Inflation was at 2% when the government came in, and they nearly doubled it. The much vaunted promise of £300 off energy bills is nowhere to be seen. And in her budget, the Chancellor announced that Labour would end the 5p fuel duty cut that we introduced. That will take effect from September this year. This will see the average family paying £100 a year more. And the Road Haulage Association estimates it will add over £2,000 per year for the operating costs of an HGV. And from April next year, the government will scrap the 16-year fuel duty freeze that we introduced. Inflation-linked rises will follow. This marks the end of support offered to motorists since 2010, of saving them £120 billion thanks to the freeze. And that puts in context the modest £5 million or so cost of the rural fuel duty relief. In November, the Chancellor also announced a pay-per-mile tax on electric vehicles set to cost drivers an extra £255 a year. So it's little wonder the RAC has said that the cost of simply keeping vehicles on the road has become a significant financial challenge. And the Prime Minister has also been boasting about the £3 bus cap, a cap he has increased by 50%. So whether fuel duty or public transport, the government is making it harder and more expensive for rural communities. And they're not only being punished at the pump. In the debate, we've heard reference to the family farm tax, breaking up farms that form the backbone of our rural communities. And while the modest change that the Minister has announced is welcome as far as it goes, given the damage that the tax will do nonetheless, the Conservatives are committed to reversing it entirely. And as well as increases in fuel duty that I've referred to, business rates is also going to increase, hitting those rural pubs and businesses, with UK Hospitality estimating an average pub paying an extra £12,900 over the next 3 years. And the Minister has been sent out to defend the farm tax and said there wouldn't be changes, and then there were. At Treasury questions, I called on the Chancellor to look again at the business rates increases, and the Minister ruled that out then. But we read today that there may be changes, and apparently the Business Secretary has even noticed the damage that this will do, presumably not from discussing it in a pub, given the bars that many Labour MPs are facing. So could the Minister confirm whether the government is considering making changes as the sector and many across this House have called for? The rural fuel duty relief scheme reflects an approach to governing that recognises the distinct challenges and vital importance of our rural communities. We introduced this scheme, we extended it, and throughout our time in government demonstrated we understand and support those who live and work in the countryside. And given it's now more than a decade since the scheme was last expanded, and with its modest costs, I fully support a review of this relief. The Treasury often say they keep taxes under review, but this deserves having a proactive review of the measure, and I hope the Minister will commit to that in his closing remarks. By contrast, this government's tax rise after tax rise are making life harder for rural businesses and for rural people. Against a backdrop of weak growth and rising unemployment, Labour's approach sadly threatens the fabric of our rural communities, and those rural communities deserve much better. Thank you.
Minister to respond.